Hello and welcome to Pattern of the Ages, a podcast about the Amazon Prime show, The Wheel of Time. My name is Tony, and joining me is Ryan.
Hello, I'm glad to be back and talking about the new episode.
Today, we will be discussing and recapping episode 6 of The Wheel of Time, titled The Flames of Tar Valon. Please note there will be spoilers for episodes 1 through 6. So if you haven't watched yet, you may want to pause this and come back later. However, we will be avoiding spoilers for all future episodes. We'll start off the episode today recapping. And then after we recap, we'll go over some general impressions and maybe some predictions. So why don't we just jump right into the recap? Take us.
Yeah. So like you said, it's episode 6, and it's directed by Sally Richardson Whitfield and written by Justine Jewell Gilmer.
Has she written any of the other episodes?
I think these are both new, but I can't remember.
Yeah, they seem new to me.
Yeah. So the cold open this time seems like every episode now they're doing like a cold open that's separate from this, like the main plot.
Yeah, they've all been really good though. I've enjoyed them.
Yeah, so this one has a young girl who you can kind of guess is Swan, the Amerlin seat that we've heard about. And she is living with her father in like a little hut on they have like a little fishing thing set up so they can kind of make their living off the river. And so her father and her go out and they're catching fish, and we see that she uses channeling, and she is able to like quickly unravel the knots in their net, and maybe she's using some channeling to help capture more fish too when they cast the net, right?
Yep.
But we see them return home, and their house must have been raided or something, and
it seems unclear as to why that whole thing happened.
Yeah, so the father basically says, like, you're special, um, you're as strong as the tides, and to not let anyone make you be ashamed of your powers. And he sort of sends her away, presumably to go to train.
And the father's missing one of his hands. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I guess that's why she feels obligated to be like be channeling to help her dad, since he has a hard time with the nets and all that stuff, all the fishing, all the thing that goes all the things that go into the fishing with the nets and whatnot. She's a big help to him because she can channel and make things easier or whatever. And he warns her, like, you can't you can't channel out here like that in the open. We have to make sure no one's looking. And then but then she feels torn because she's like, she doesn't want to see her dad suffer like that and have to really toil at messing with working the nets and whatnot. So
I thought it was a good opening though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was a good opening. Okay, and then the credits roll, and then when we come back from the credits, we're back to present day.
Yeah, so we now see that Swan has arrived in the present day at the White Tower. And if you didn't make the connection, like, you can tell that the girl had the same tattoo on her chest.
Yeah.
As Swan.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll explain what that's all about. If there's something more to it than just
maybe something
aesthetics.
With that culture.
Yeah.
So she sort of has like her formal entrance kind of thing into the White Tower, and she has her seat in the middle, and they bring Logain in front of her,
kind of like a throne.
Yeah. And like there's around her there's different Aes Sedai who are kind of like, you're assuming they're a part of the leadership there.
Yeah, like her council or something like that. Yeah.
And she also has like someone that is kind of like her second in command, that the woman that had like the stick that introduced her when she comes in.
Yeah, her herald.
Yeah. So they're sort of having the trial for Logain. And the first thing that Swan says is, like, remove his chains. Why is he chained up if he is powerless now. Um, but Logain sort of is given a moment to speak, and he basically says that the Aes Sedai are the weakest they've ever been. He talks about how his army was able to kill Karini in episode 4, and basically that the world doesn't have as much faith in them as they used to. But
I mean, he's got a point.
Yeah.
He was able to, it's men aren't supposed to be using, aren't supposed to be using, weaving, and yet he was able to do that and, cause a lot of headache for them and kill an Aes Sedai and force all these Aes Sedai to come and fight against him. And it is, I mean, to his credit, is, I guess it's impressive.
Yeah, but Swan sort of says like that he's playing it up and sort of saying these things because he wants to be killed because he has nothing to live for anymore.
Yeah. And then because they also say once you've touched the how do they say it? What's the terminology? Touched the
source, or
the one source or the true source. That once you lose it, they said that in the previous episode, that once you lose it, like once you've known the power of the one source, if you lose it, then life just feels meaningless. And so I think that's what they're trying to show here. I mean,
we already know that the men go mad, and then now that he's cut off, he's go even more mad.
Right.
But Swan says that she's not going to give him death because that's what he wants, and she's going to make an example of him to basically show all the other men that can channel any other false dragon what the consequences will be, and that he'll never be free. And Logain sort of just like starts begging to be killed.
Yeah.
At that point.
So is the issue that he is a false dragon, that he proclaims himself a false dragon, or is it the problem that he was like in rebellion against the Aes Sedai, or is it both?
Yeah, I think it's both.
Yeah, because they don't really say, but at the same time, at the same time, the Aes Sedai have so they have our five main characters, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And they know, or they suspect, that one of them is the true dragon. So does that mean that the other four are false dragons?
Well, I think if it's Egwene or Nynaeve, they're women, so they can't, they wouldn't really be a false dragon because they'd just be a female channeler.
So a false dragon has to be a man?
They haven't really said in the show, but
right, that's what I'm getting at. It's just interesting to me how what they're saying and what they don't say, and how they say you're a false dragon, but where do you cross the line between being someone who can channel and is powerful and then to being a false dragon? What's the where's the line? And it does seem kind of weird for them to be like, you're a false dragon, you're a false dragon because, I guess, A, you're a man, and B, you've proclaimed yourself to be a dragon, or to be the dragon. And then at the same time, they can also say, well, here's these 5 people and we think one of them's a dragon, but we're not quite sure. So the other 4 could also be. So what does that make them? I guess they're not proclaiming themselves to be the dragon, but it's funny that the Aes Sedai can see where it's possible for someone to be the true dragon, but it not be clear. Like, it's not clear to them, right? This is the whole show, is that it's not clear to the Aes Sedai who the true dragon is.
So, I think they're afraid of like any man that can channel.
Yeah. So but the ones that they've decided might be the dragon are okay, but the ones that they have decided definitely can't be the dragon, they're going to string them up for being false dragons.
Well, I think they're only okay because they can rein them in right now. So if it turns out that one of them turns evil, then they would probably kill them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with it being a man.
Yeah,
Although
But like,
although later in the episode, they kind of turn it around a little bit and say that maybe this time around the true dragon has put pieces of himself in like multiple people. It's kind of like a Harry
mhm.
Potter thing with the what are
Yeah,
the
we'll get to that in a
yeah,
minute.
yeah. So they kind of flip that around a little bit going as the episode goes on, but it was interesting to me to try to figure out what their kind of internal logic was for.
I think anything that's a threat to them, they're
they
gonna
just
do something like that
they
too.
just call it the false dragon,
If it's
I
I
guess.
think the men to proclaim themselves the false dragon when they try and have their uprisings.
So they're not having that at all.
Yeah.
And then okay, well, yeah. Anyway, I digress, and that probably wasn't maybe that wasn't the most well thought out, but like it is interesting to me how
Well,
their
there's a
kind of
little
internal
hypocrisy in it.
politics work. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so Logain, we get the vibe that Logain wants to be killed for
Mhm.
all the reasons we mentioned, but um, Swan says that she's not going to do that.
Yeah, and they
And
kind of carry him away.
yeah, and they take him out. But then we still stay in that same
Hmm.
throne room or whatever we'd like to call it, meeting place, and Swan starts to kind of yell at Liandryn and Moraine and Ilana
Hmm.
for not giving Logan a trial.
Which we knew was coming because they said that earlier in episode 4
Yeah,
that she would not be pleased.
right. And it turns out they were right.
Yeah, so Swan sort of says that Liandryn will be punished because she was the one that was supposedly in charge of Logain because she was of the Red. Um, but when that happens, Liandryn accuses Moraine of basically keeping secrets from them and hiding Nynaeve if she knew about all those powers that she had when she healed everyone.
Right.
Um, and she sort of says like, why does Moraine have so many secrets from us? Like, is
Yeah.
she a spy or something?
Right.
And
Does she
Swan
have some
asks,
yeah, basically like not is she, we all know she's a spy, like that's her. I mean, she's a spy in the sense that all of the blue are
yeah,
spies or run spy networks or what have you. But um but I guess the subtext there is she plotting against us
yeah,
somehow? Yeah. Which
if she's
seems
basically
pretty
a dark
wild.
friend or
Yeah. That's a pretty wild accusation that I think doesn't really doesn't
I,
get enough weight, because if you stand, she's accusing Moraine of being a traitor. I mean, essentially, and the accusation just kind of it doesn't land with a lot of authority. Like you think, like I would assume it would, if a high-ranking Aes Sedai says, insinuates that someone's a spy. I mean, that seems like a pretty wild accusation to me, but
yeah,
it doesn't really go anywhere.
I think Moraine just sort of says like she was trying to protect them, doesn't she? Like she doesn't really.
But she didn't know. She just said,
Yeah,
well, right, I didn't, there was no reason for me to know that she was
yeah,
that powerful. And I mean, that's her defense. I mean, that's the reason she offers as her defense. And as the viewer, we have no reason to doubt that. Like she never let,
wonder if there's just not a lot of weight put into it because there's a lot of infighting that goes on. We just haven't seen it yet. Like,
I guess, I mean, that's the only really solution I can think of. That's just a bunch of people being
yeah,
that these kind of accusations get thrown around in a petty kind of way.
yeah, but basically Swan just says like to remember your place and has her bow down to her
Right. Yeah.
when they're in the room.
Yeah. And then they say, what have you been, she does kind of ask like, okay, Marina, what have you been doing in 2 years? Like, what are the things
Mm-hmm.
what have you been doing? And she kind of gives a answer that's not wholly satisfactory, I would say, as like as a viewer. But I mean, I do understand that it seems like she has a messy job, and it's, a lot of what she's doing is just going out there and seeing what's going on. And it's not doesn't seem to me to be necessarily a position where you're always going to have a bunch of concrete results to point to like that. But anyway, moving on. What happens next?
Yeah, so like I think it's sort of like in the hallway, like
Yeah.
right after this, and Alana sort of says like, Moraine, what are you doing? Like, you have to apologize for this, and like sort of deflect the accusation from you.
Right.
Um, but Liandryn just sort of says, I did this for your own benefit. So she's just being normal, Liandryn.
Yep. Yeah, and that's part of this is my general criticism of this. I wasn't super big on, like, wasn't really impressed with this episode. I was impressed of the stuff that happened, but not how it happened.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people standing in rooms talking, which can which can certainly work, but it felt a little flat here to me.
I think they're trying to
And
plant seeds for stuff.
yeah, and that's
They didn't really
fine.
have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and that's fine, but you don't want all of that all in one episode. Like,
Yeah.
like a lot of exposition, a lot of people going to this room and talking and then leaving that room and going to a different room and talking. And it's not, I don't think that this is a
Yeah.
series that needs to have big action set pieces every 15 minutes. But if you're going to be in the same setting, everyone's together in the same building, in the same castle or whatever, and if you're just going to kind of shift from room to room and have these really which I think are pretty slow paced conversations that don't have a lot of impact on the plot to the viewer. Like, it's a lot of like it's a lot of like inside baseball relationships, like talk about relationships, and you said that and you said that, and we need to do this and we need to do that. But it's not, I don't know, a lot of it is really slow paced, and it kind of lacks a lot of like forward momentum for the episode as a whole. I agree that a lot of the stuff is likely to pay off in the next episode or two, but it just felt like this episode needed a little urgency and less of them just the camera going from one room to the other and listening to people kind of have pretty laid back discussions about
Well, I think we did
things that
learn,
already happened.
like, so Moraine and Leandrin is pretty much the same. Like, we didn't really learn anything about them here. Same with Alana.
Yeah.
But like, you did learn about Swan and her authority, kind of like them. This is the first time she's on screen, right? So,
yeah. I mean, that's really all the kind of new information happens with Swan, and then at the very end, and the rest of it is kind of like other characters finding out things that we already knew.
Yeah.
Like when Moraine is going and talking to Matt and Rand, and then she goes and she talks to what are the other two?
Perrin
and yeah. And it's like, well, we're not, the audience is not really getting a lot of new information here. It's just the other characters in the show are getting caught up, or getting brought up to speed, where as the audience, like, we already know what happened, so we don't really need
it was a lot of setting
that
the
experience.
stage.
Yeah. Anyway, we getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So tell us what's going on next.
Yeah, so after that scene, we go back to Matt and Rand in their little inn room.
Yep.
And Moraine shows up with Lana, I think.
Yeah.
And Matt's getting worse, like he can barely.
Yeah, Lana's definitely there because they have that confrontation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Matt can't even move, or basically he's getting consumed by whatever condition he's in.
The darkness.
Yeah. And Rand kind of thinks that they're there to like potentially gentle Matt. So he draws his blade on Lan and Moraine. And when this happens, Matt pulls out the dagger from Shadar Logoth. And Moraine basically says like this is what is basically what we've already assumed is that the dagger from Shadar Logoth is infecting him,
Right.
and she sort of does like a little channeling and pulls out like the black whatever it was out of it,
Right. Well, out
and
of him too, not just
yeah,
out of the dagger, but
and puts it back into the dagger, right?
I don't think so. I think she puts it into herself. Like
Oh, so
she
she just
draws it. Yeah.
consumes it.
Yeah. She draws the black, I don't know what to call it, right? Like the black
In
power,
the
the
in the books,
evil.
it was called Mashadar,
Okay. So
but
she
they
draws
have
that out
separate.
of Matt and out of the dagger. And it seems like she just kind of like consumes it herself or
Yeah.
whatever. And then because the dagger drops to the floor and it looks just like a normal dagger. It's
Okay.
not,
Yeah.
yeah, it looks like it's been demagicked. Yeah, and that is kind of what happens there. I thought
hmm
that scene was really I thought that this whole thing was really lame. Like the show spent a lot of time on Matt kind of slowly going insane and having this power affecting him and the dagger and all this stuff. Like this took place over many episodes. And
hmm
then we get to this point and then Moraine just shows up and just takes it away.
Yeah.
It's like, well, all that for that, like all of that build up
hmm
for Moraine just to walk into a room and just kind of draw it out of him, and that's it. And there is like to jump ahead a little bit, there is a conversation that happens later where Moraine says we need to keep an eye on Matt because the sickness that was in him that I removed should have had a greater effect on him than
Yeah.
it
I
did.
think that's the next scene,
Yeah.
isn't it?
So it could be. So I guess there is a little bit more of a payoff, but if the payoff for all of that is that Moraine removed the threat from Matt, removed the sickness, whatever from Matt,
hmm
and then we got a little bit of exposition about Matt seems like he could be powerful. Like what a waste. Like that does seems like a lot of buildup for not a very good payoff. I mean,
Yeah.
they could
And
have
they were.
shown the audience that Matt was potentially powerful in other ways, except for to draw out this whole subplot about him being consumed by the darkness. And then what did it amount to? It just amounted to Moraine taking it away and then saying, seems like Matt might be powerful.
I think that they also like this is one of the consequences of speeding up the books. Like so, in the books, he was it was like hundreds of pages and different interactions, whereas this was like 3 or 4 episodes. So
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak to the book. I know
yeah,
as people who have listened, if people have listened from episode one of the podcast, know I haven't read any of the books, and you've read
yeah,
the first three of the books,
I
so I
could see your
can't.
frustration.
Yeah, so I can't really speak to that, but it does seem. I don't know. I just didn't like how that whole thing paid off. I thought they were. I was hoping
I
that would be more impactful somehow.
I think it still was going to impact his character, like that he went through that. But
Yeah, well, we'll see.
yeah,
Who
but
knows? I mean, there's a
so
little bit. There is a thing at the end that I won't jump ahead to, but
yeah,
with Matt, but it does. I don't know, man. It just seemed like a long way to go to just for the
mm,
only takeaway to be that Matt seems like he might be powerful. But we knew that about all of them. Like
yeah,
we were all working from that assumption to begin with because the Aes Sedai, Moraine had identified them as being potentially the dragon reborn. So
hmm
what really are you telling us? You're not really telling us anything more than you told us in episode one, which was that these people are potentially powerful and potentially the dragon reborn. And so you're just kind of restating that in a way that took up a lot of like time and a lot of airtime to just tell us that again in a slightly different way. I don't
yeah,
know.
and
I'm
I mean,
not
it
a
also
fan.
showed that he was greedy. Like he took the dagger without after being told not to take it, but um, I could still see that like
Yeah.
seemed like they were making a bigger deal out of it than they would.
Yeah.
And we could talk more about that maybe in the future when we see how his character, you
At,
know,
at the end.
or just in general, like
Oh, okay, yeah.
in future seasons or whatever.
Sure. All right, so
But
next scene. Okay, go ahead.
but like you said, the next scene is just like Rand and Moraine went to like the balconies and Matt's not there, and she just says like a normal person would not have lasted that long. Like he's very strong, like you said, and
Yeah.
she's sort of Nynaeve is there, and she's like, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" So, yeah.
All right. I think we probably said enough about that.
Yeah. So
All right.
Moraine, the next scene, right, is Moraine with Megan.
Yeah.
It's another bath scene. It's like the
Bathhouse. Yeah.
second or third bath scene in the
Yeah.
show. So, but this Aes Sedai is another blue, and they're talking about what happened earlier with Swan and Liandryn,
Right.
and she's basically warning Moraine that she needs to show her loyalty and not be so flaky, kind of, right?
Yeah.
And Megan says that ships are disappearing. She says some other things are happening and around the world, and she might want to leave the White Tower to investigate. And she wants Moraine to stay behind and stay at the White Tower for a while. That way, people stop getting suspicious.
Yeah.
And they also mentioned that the Trollocs were able to get to the two rivers unnoticed, so they're not really sure how they're traveling around like that.
Yeah, and I also took that to be another kind of jab at Moraine. Like if your job is to kind of know, is to be out there knowing what's going on and having a network of spies, then how did that get by you?
Yeah.
But
So I think this is more setups. Like we don't really learn anything about Moraine again, except that she doesn't like to stay at the White Tower.
yeah, I mean, that's definitely the purpose of the scene, is to introduce the idea that the leadership of the Aes Sedai, or the council, Aes Sedai council or Aes Sedai leadership wants her to stay at the White Tower for reasons both explained and potentially unexplained.
Yeah. So
to try to kind of cap her influence, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say exactly what the motivation is.
it's kind of interesting that this woman was another blue, and they're still not talking openly. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of
you'd
awkward.
think that they
It's
would be
hard.
on the same page if they're both
Yeah,
blue.
it's hard for me to understand how the different sects of Aes Sedai work, like the red, blues, greens,
Yeah.
etc., because they all don't seem very cohesive. Like they don't
Even
seem
within their own.
right. Exactly. Except for the reds seem to be pretty.
They all
Yeah.
hate men, so it's not hard for them.
Yeah. Right. They have something to rally around. But at
Yeah, I
any
don't know.
rate, so then we're back to Perrin and Egwin.
Yeah. So this is the first time we've seen them in this city, right?
In the White Tower. Yeah.
Yeah. So they arrive, and a yellow has found them, and we learn that the yellows are kind of like the healers, right?
Yeah. I think we knew that.
And so they're healing up Perrin of his wounds. He's probably got like 3 wounds by now. Like,
yeah,
he's got his cuts on the back. His ankle was probably infected if that didn't heal.
Right, from the wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so
then Egwin tells the yellow. I don't know if we know that person's name, that character's name.
yeah, I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
But Egwin tells her about the interaction or the confrontation they had with the White Cloaks.
Yeah.
And then gives her the rings that she took.
Yeah, and Moraine sort of still is not communicating with people here because she doesn't tell them that she's found the others. Did you notice that?
Right. She's playing them off of. She's keeping them in the dark. Both pairs of people that.
Yeah.
And I don't really. I thought it was interesting that she was doing that, But then once we got toward the end of the episode, I really wondered what the whole point was.
It feels like she does this a lot, and it's like more of like this is a part of her character more than actually makes sense.
Right, like they're trying to show like she's a spy, she's works in intelligence and in spycraft, and this would be something that this would be something you would expect of someone who works for the CIA to kind of keep these secrets
Yeah,
regardless of whether they're just kind of by nature, like that's
I
just
guess she
part of
just
their.
doesn't trust them.
Yeah, but I don't know, for in this context, in this show, I do feel like it should be kind of explained, like if you're gonna
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is she doesn't trust them, and she thinks that one of them might be a dark friend and
tell them what though,
like they're here and
and then what.
I guess come and take them.
And then I don't. That's why I'm saying, like, I can't connect the dots. It's like if they both know that they're there, so what? Like they would demand to see each other sooner than she wants. Is she trying to like keep them separate to see if their stories conflict with one another? But I don't.
Yeah, I mean
That
that's one of
seems.
the frustrating things about Moraine is like you're doing like you're not telling anyone anything.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like
Yeah,
maybe if she would have said something, there wouldn't have been so much conflict later on in the episode.
good. Yeah, and it's also curious to pull these people aside to be like, well, we think you might be the Dragon Reborn,
Yeah,
but then treat them. I mean, I guess the Dragon Reborn isn't necessarily a good thing. It could be a good thing or a bad thing, right?
yeah, that's why.
So maybe she's keeping them trying to be cautious about it, but I
Yeah,
don't know. I feel like the idea that the Dragon Reborn isn't necessarily a good thing has been kind of lost along the way here. Don't you think? Like during the first
mm,
episode, I feel like they did a good job or made it a point to get across to the audience that the Dragon Reborn could go either way, right?
yeah,
It could be a force for darkness or it could be a force against darkness. And ever since then, I feel like that
well,
concept has really kind of not been emphasized at all. And I think the audience is left to that unless the audience has that in the back of their mind, which most people probably aren't, and that's not a criticism. It's just they haven't, they haven't um acted as though it's important for many episodes. But so unless you have that in the back of your mind, which again I don't think most people probably do, then I think that at this point the show has kind of lulled everybody into thinking that it's definitely a positive thing, whereas a careful viewing or a good memory would, you would know that, if you're watching
mhm.
carefully or have a good memory, you would know that this was not necessarily the case. But
I think maybe they want us to think that Moraine thinks that she can control them and make them good or something. Maybe,
well,
but
I don't
I mean,
know.
we'll have more dragon discussions here in the next scene.
Yeah. Yeah, but let's not forget Egwin tells Moraine about Perrin's yellow eyes and
Yeah,
how
so
Perrin's eyes change in color when he.
maybe that's why she wanted to hide stuff because she doesn't trust Perrin now.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe.
know. Yeah, could be. Anyway, next scene has Lan in Moraine's quarters, and he
Yeah,
says that he's asking her like, why did you mask our bond? Like our
yeah.
bond has been masked, and why did you
And
do that? And I can't protect you if you do that. And
that's
she
funny. So
doesn't.
this,
Yeah, and she doesn't really have a great answer.
well, it's another thing where she's hiding.
Yeah.
So in the
So
next scene, she's hiding something from the person who she's supposedly supposed to trust the most.
right, it's supposed to be her closest confidant, and she's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't want, it's for your own good. I think she says something along those lines, and
like
it's
give you a break or something.
yeah, I don't know. It seems pretty flimsy to me.
Yeah, but he
Anyhow,
leaves, right?
yeah. So then the next scene also involves
Hmm.
when Lan leaves. So Lan leaves, and so we stay in the in anyway. Then Lan leaves, and she closes the portrait,
Yeah, so it's a thing from the end of last episode that we were like very confused about.
Yeah, it was like a picture of someone
Yeah.
looking off into the distance that it was never explained.
Yeah, they don't really explain this, but like in the world there's certain objects that are magical. And so she's using this and it opens a portal.
So this is book stuff
Yeah.
that you know from the book. Okay.
I'm sure they'll elaborate later, but like this is one of those things that she couldn't do with magic. She had to use this object.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically she's stargating into
Yeah.
Swan's chamber or
And
her
presumably they both
apartments.
have like it seems like it's not in the White Tower, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
It's
I hadn't even thought about that till you just said it. I guess it could be anywhere.
yeah, I think it might have been like near where she grew up because I think you can hear a river or something.
Oh, yeah, I would
I'm
not
not
have
sure
noticed
though,
that. I would have not have picked up on that.
but it doesn't really.
I assumed that it was in the White Tower, but now that you say it, there's no reason, I guess,
Yeah,
to assume that.
yeah. So she's meeting up with Swan, and it's revealed that the whole previous scene was kind of like they were playing up their antagonism towards each other, right?
Right.
And they're actually secretly working together, and they actually have a relationship.
Yeah. This was a pretty good twist, I thought.
Yeah.
Like I thought they did a pretty good job setting this up.
So they sort of are going here to have their um, sort of like to have some alone time together.
Yeah,
Um,
to reconnect because Moraine's been gone for such a, been gone for such a long time. And I assume they haven't seen each other.
yeah.
And I don't know if it's quite been 2 years. They mentioned that Moraine's been gone for 2 years, but I don't know.
Hmm.
I can't exactly say that it's been 2 years since they saw each other, but
Now we know why she turned off the bond from Lan
yeah,
because she's meeting with him or with her, and he would feel it.
I guess he would. I mean,
Yeah, so he would feel all the emotions she is. So
okay. Well, then how has she gotten away with it before that?
yeah, I guess she's always turning it off whenever they meet.
It's just turning it off and on. That's
Yeah,
not that's not suspicious at all. Okay.
yeah,
All right. Um, yeah,
but
but anyway,
they're
go
sort of
ahead.
spending the night together.
Yeah,
But Moraine is talking, so they start talking about the dragon, and they mention like a prophecy or rumblings that there could be a many-headed dragon.
yeah,
So that's what you were saying earlier, where the dragon could be all of them.
that's my bet.
Yeah, and she also says there's a vision that she saw, like the birth of the dragon. Uh, so like it's sort of like reincarnation.
Yeah,
When the previous dragon dies, she had a vision of the new one being born. So that's why she's sort of thinking that the five potentials might
yeah,
not be true.
yeah. And here that they go on here to remind the audience that
Yeah, so that's
about,
what
yeah,
um, you were saying. No one would remember until now, I
yeah.
guess.
It's kind of a shame though, like this kind of gentle reminder in the last third of this episode is kind of in the middle of another kind of monologue,
Yeah,
or maybe not a monologue exactly, but this quiet scene between just two characters that also um, talks about a lot of, that kind of cover a lot of ground here.
yeah, it's a lot of information at once.
Yeah, big information dump. So this is, yeah, the prophecy, reminds, they kind of remind each other about the prophecy that the dragon will
Yeah,
either be working with the dark one or fighting against the dark one.
and it's kind of showing that Swan is like they're totally on each other's side, and she's compromising her leadership role because of it. You know, because
Yeah,
she's doing things outside of the entire White Tower's knowledge.
yeah, but why? Do you
Yeah,
know why? Like
I
why is
think we're
this?
just led to assume that their relationship like they were friends before she became the Amerlin.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but it seems to me that this was important work. Like finding out who the next
Yeah,
dragon is important work. So why would it have to be secretive
the
among the
only
Aes
thing I could
Sedai?
think of is that they don't trust
Okay,
everyone else, so they don't trust Liandryn or
I
whatever.
guess. Yeah, that's fair.
They have trust problems.
Yeah, that's fair.
But so Swan has they kind of allude that she can see things in her dreams, right? And so she dreams of the Dark One at this place called the Eye of the World. And so
Is this the
that's
first time they've mentioned that?
I think so. So that's the
Yeah.
title of the first book.
Yeah.
So obviously it's important.
Yeah.
But so they're saying that they may have to go to this place in order to stop the Dark One. Right.
Yeah. I mean,
And
yeah,
then
that's the idea.
and she tells Swan, Moraine tells Swan that she's being that she should exile her since Megan had ordered her to stay there, and that's not what they want.
Right. Yeah. So she can overrule Megan and
Yeah.
exile her, which
So they're working together behind the
clever.
scenes.
Yeah. Clever. Okay. Okay. Next scene.
Yeah, so it's sort of another small scene with Liandryn, and she's confronting Moraine, and she says like,
They're like in
so
another hallway. Is that right?
yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah.
hallway scenes with Liandryn.
It's like it turned into an Aaron Sorkin show all of a sudden. People just talking in hallways.
But I guess yeah, I guess Liandryn um, has noticed the other four because she knew that Nynaeve was there,
Yeah.
and she's noticed the rest, and she says they're all from the Two Rivers.
Yeah, she puts it together. That's I think that's how that's what we're supposed to think. She puts it together because they're all from the same. They're all from Two Rivers.
Yeah, so she's finding out more information, and Moraine just threatens her and says, "If you keep digging or tell anyone, then I will reveal that you meet this man at North Harbor." Like,
Yeah, and they damn well better go back to this at some point because if we can just have characters like throwing out blackmail information, like subtle, somewhat subtle blackmail information
yeah.
like that, just to get out of any situation and without any kind of payoff whatsoever, then that's pretty sloppy
Well, I think there
plotting.
just needs to be payoff for Liandrin in general. She just does a lot of scheming or whatever,
Yeah.
but she's not doing a lot.
Yeah, she's just kind of showing up and like spoiling
Yeah.
being the throwing cold water on everything.
Yeah. So I think they'll
Okay,
come
yeah.
back to that.
I hope so because she's, pretty in because Landrin's reaction is pretty like severe, like
She's like shocked.
right. She's like, okay, well, that's a good point. So I'm gonna leave you alone now. But
So,
like, so
well,
I hope they go back to that and tell us exactly what that's all about.
yeah, because the Reds aren't supposed to. I don't think they're supposed to have relationships, or because they don't have warders. So
Yeah. Okay, then Moraine and Lan go and meet with Loyal,
yeah,
and they say that they need help, that there's a crisis and they need his help. I
yeah.
really
So
wish
they're
they would do more like backstory on Loyal
yeah.
because
They didn't really say why they needed him. They just
or like how they know each other. I mean, they're both at the White, he's at the White Tower, so you have to assume that they're familiar with each other. But
I
this
think it's
scene,
just
this
you're
this
supposed to
scene,
assume that he's just like traveling and he stopped there. I think.
oh, okay, I didn't get that, but
Yeah,
I could have just overlooked it. But I want to know why they're close, like because this scene makes it seem like they're close like that. Like
yeah,
Moraine and Lan would just show up and be like, "Hey, hey, bro, we're gonna need you to, to run with us for a little bit and help us."
yeah.
And
That's
like, why would
interesting.
Loyal do that? Like, why would he just be ready to ride or die with Moraine and Lan if there isn't some kind of
It's such a quick scene. Like
history
you don't
there?
really get
Yeah,
time to think about
yeah. Okay, so Loyal, they go and get Loyal, and he
it.
agrees to
Yeah.
go with them for reasons that are unclear and will probably, will maybe never be clear. So then we have a
Uh-huh.
new scene, and we're back at the Amelin with in the hall of the Amelin seat.
Yeah, and Moraine
And
has taken
yeah, go ahead.
Egwene there, and she sort of like says like, "Oh, you can look around." like because she hasn't seen the White Tower yet. And while they're in the hall, Land brings in Nynaeve, and so they sort of have a reunion. Like Nynaeve is glad that she's found another one.
Yeah.
um, but the real reason why Moraine has brought them together was that Swan wants to talk to them both, and so they bring her to like a different room, right? And this might be like her quarters or something like that, like her office. And basically, like Swan says, like, Nynaeve, you have all this great power, like you healed all these people, and Egwene, you stopped the White Cloaks and you took back our rings, which was such a great thing. Uh, and she just says, like, you're both going to be very important, and we need you for the final battle. But other than that, we don't really get more purpose for
Yeah.
this.
And so Nynaeve kind of pushes back against that and said, I don't remember exactly what she says, but she pushes back, says something like, don't act like you know me. You don't know, we're not.
She's being normal, Nynaeve.
Yeah. Like kind of standoffish, which is like totally fair. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. Beyond that, that's the scene. I think
Yeah, it
it's
was kind of weird. Like they wanted a reason for the girls to have met Swan, but they didn't really know what to do with them other than to just say hello. Like,
yeah, because it seems I don't know. We maybe don't need to dwell on this, but it seems like I guess I can see it because Nynaeve's been standoffish about the whole situation. And so
yeah,
maybe this is a way to bring Swan in there because she is, a famous person with a lot of authority, and
yeah.
they can bring her in to say, you are very important to the cause, and to try to influence her to help
So,
them out or whatever. So I guess I see where it's going, but
and presumably they'll need their great power
right.
at, to help with this crisis, like how they need Loyal. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Either way. So do you want to move to the next scene in the
sure.
for Moraine's
So it's the final,
sentencing?
kind of the final sequence,
Yeah.
right? So she shows up to her sentencing, and they use like this oath fraud
It's a
that's
really long scene for what for
very
what for
dramatic.
what happens. It's like really drawn out. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they use the oath rod, which is the same rod they use when they take those oaths that we talked about in episode 2, where they must not tell lie and all the a couple others, right?
Yeah.
And so Moraine had to take her new oath, which I I can't remember the exact wording, but the way she words it is that she'll never return to the White Tower unless Swan asks her to return,
Yeah, that's right.
and she doesn't say the Emerald seat, right? So she
Oh,
specifically
that's a
says Swan.
that's a good
To,
point. I don't remember
I
paying
think she
attention to
changed
that.
the wording so that she could make it so that Swan can tell her maybe in secret to
Okay.
return. But
Subtle.
anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
she leaves. She's exiled now, and so they're she's leaving, and she's gathered up. Um, right, who does she have with her? Is she just by herself? And
Well, yeah, I mean, the end result is they've got the whole band back together plus
yeah,
Loyal.
so Loyal has Egwene and Perrin. Lan has Randon, Matt, and Nynaeve. And so they're at this giant gate
Yeah,
looking
well, they're
thing.
out. They're like out in the middle of a field, right?
Yeah,
Like a
outside the
hilltop or
outskirts.
something. Yeah. And
Um,
there's like a gate, like a doesn't. I guess it kind of looks like a gate henge sort of thing. I don't know how to describe it. Like this big stone. It looks like a stone monument that could be
yeah,
like a
two
gate of
pillars,
some sort.
and the horses are afraid of it. So, and Loyal is basically saying that this gate is like an entrance to the ways,
Yep.
and so the horses are afraid of the ways, so they can't go with them. And Nynaeve is, of course, saying like she wants answers. Like, why are you making me leave right now? Like, what's
Yeah,
going on?
fair.
But L'Oreal explains that these are like ancient pathways where they can travel quickly. And Moraine says, "We're going to the eye of the world where the Dark One is, and the dragon must be there to stop him, pretty much."
Yeah,
And Moraine opens up the ways, and it's like a portal, like another Stargate,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and they go inside. But while they're doing this, Matt is sort of mistrusting everything as usual,
yeah.
and
Surprise.
he refuses to go in.
Yeah, and the impression I got was that the gate, I don't know, for lack of a better term, the gate closes
Hmm.
without Matt. So they're
And they're
all
screaming, "Come in!" Like,
right. Matt, what are you doing? And so the gate closes, Matt doesn't join them. And
yeah,
so, and that's where the episode literally ends. So we don't know what
yeah,
what will happen next exactly. I assume that Matt is gonna still be there and they're going to be
yeah,
traveling on to the dark prison or eye of the world
yeah,
to um, go to the I don't know what they call it, the dark prison or the prison of the
yeah. I think it's
uh,
just called the where the Dark One is imprisoned. I don't think there's a name for it.
yeah,
Not yet, at least.
yeah.
But
And that's where it ends. I like the last scene. I like the introduction of the eye of the world and the introduction of the ways. That's
yeah,
pretty handy way to get around.
and like, so they've been separated for episode 3, 4, 5, and 6. So
Most of
four,
6.
yeah, so 4 episodes they've been separate, and now they're
Yeah,
back together. So like half the season.
yeah. And I remember so let's talk about our general. This is a good
Yeah.
opportunity to
So
get into our general impressions. But I remember going back to when they separated. I think that might have been episode 2 where they all got it separated. Or
yeah, the
early,
very end of
yeah,
episode 2.
yeah. That I liked that from a storytelling perspective because it gives you more
Yeah.
settings to visit and gives everything a different look. Now they're all back together, which is fine because they all need to go to the same place. If they all, well, they're not all together. Matt is still separate.
Yeah.
At and I guess all the I so I guess they could for the next episode. I'm assuming it's going to be something like all of them are going to go through travel the ways and go to the eye of the world, and then we'll also have scenes with Matt doing whatever Matt is going to do, and then we have all the other
Hmm.
Aes Sedai back at the White Tower to they can
Well,
flash
remember
to
that
them.
um, Barney Harris actually did not show up for the final block of filming. So
Oh,
he was
Perrin.
not able to. No, Matt.
Oh,
So, so he was not able to film the ending, and we don't know why he's being replaced in season 2 with a new actor.
oh, is it the character of Matt is being replaced?
Yeah,
Oh, I thought it was Perrin for some
yeah,
reason.
Matt's being replaced,
Oh, okay.
and so no one knows what happened or when like which episodes he wasn't able to film.
Yeah.
But the assumption is that they edited this ending so that because he originally might have gone with them, and they edited it to make it look like he stayed behind. That
Yeah.
way, they could write him out of the final 2 episodes.
But they're bringing him back for season 2 just with a different actor. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
they've already replaced him, and he's I forget the actor's name.
Yeah, it's not that important, but
So I
I
think
mean,
I mean it's possible he could show up in the next episode, but I think it's safe to assume that he won't appear in the rest of the season just because of what happened, like with the actor.
yeah, I think that this gives them a better, like a cleaner break. Like there gives them some space in between episodes for the
Yeah,
audience to kind of forget what his face looks like a little bit. So when they reintroduce it, it's not as
yeah.
jarring.
Unfortunately, like I thought he was a great actor and he did well in the role, but
I think
for
he
whatever
was good
reason he's
too.
not.
Yeah.
For whatever reason he's not returning.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know that it's really important that we
Yeah.
know why he left. I do think it's kind of an interesting little bit of trivia to that we
Hmm.
know that it may have influenced how the whole show was plotted and put together here.
Yeah. And like the only reason why I guess this even happened was because they shut down because of COVID twice. And so it just happened to be that the second time that they resumed filming, he didn't return.
Yeah.
So
I as I was watching this episode though, remember a while back I had complained to you about the sets, like the interior
yeah,
sets. I didn't they seemed big. That's how I described them. I said they seemed the sizing seemed weird, like
yeah,
it seemed overly large or whatever. It occurred to me as I was watching this that the interior sets look to me like they're from a play, like a stage production.
yeah,
And I don't know if it's because of the lighting. It's probably largely how it's lit. Um, but that I don't know. This it just popped into my mind as I was watching it this episode. I was like, this is what these interior sets remind me of. They remind me of like the setting, like the sets for like a stage play. And
hmm
I don't
it
know.
might just be the way they're filming.
Yeah, I think it's the way they're lit or something too.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but actually,
But
you mentioned like the sets. I read. Remember when we talked about Shar Logoth and how they built the set for one episode?
oh yeah, yeah.
I read that they actually had reused those sets for the White Tower, so the
Oh,
exterior was all the same buildings, just not dark.
oh, they just repainted them.
Yeah, so
Okay, well,
you
I
would
guess they got
notice
away
that.
with it because I didn't notice it.
Yeah, so like probably in episode 5 when Matt and Perrin were walking through the city, those were all the same like walkway, just
Well, they've
not
got it.
darkly
Yeah,
lit.
they got to get their money's worth out of it
Yeah,
somehow. Like it seems like ridiculous that
yeah,
they would spend that much money on those massive sets just for like 10 minutes in one episode.
yeah. So, but you did
Um,
say that you were a little disappointed in the
well,
episode.
yeah, because I think part of it was because this episode kind of got gassed up a little bit by
Yeah,
other people online saying this is the big episode, episode 6. Wait
yeah.
for it. It's going to be the big one. It's mind blowing, et cetera, et cetera. And then
And even Brandon Sanderson, the author of the last 3 books, said it was like the best episode of the scripts he read, and it was like a 10 out of 10.
yeah, yeah,
And the
and
critics were saying it's better than the Game of Thrones finales. Like,
yeah, that's a lot of hype. And so I don't know if it was partly because of that. Like I already had it in my head that this was supposed to
yeah,
be kind of a flagship episode. And then it kind of, and so so I had
yeah,
my expectations were too high, but there just wasn't a lot. I mean, it was really just a lot of people talking in different rooms and hallways, and a lot of a
setup.
lot of characters finding out stuff the audience already knows, and that's never very
Yeah,
interesting. um so yeah, it's fine. I'm not here to say that I disliked the episode. I think there was a lot of interesting stuff that happened, and
yeah,
I mean there was enough, it wasn't bad. Like it wasn't a bad episode, but I think
yeah,
they needed to do something to break up all of the like um exposition and dialogue, and just all being like in rooms that all kind of look the same. Like this, we're in this stone room, and then we move to this stone room, and then we're in a stone hallway,
yeah,
and we're all just kind of talking about stuff that has already happened, or stuff that we already knew anyway. This wasn't a lot of it wasn't a lot of new information presented here. It was just kind of packaged in a different way and
yeah. I was
revealed the
also,
different characters. Like different characters learned new things, but it wasn't really very impactful. Like the most impactful stuff was that um that Moraine got exiled, and that
mhm.
she's basically sleeping with Swan, and that there's like a Stargate thing that they're gonna use to
and
pop
the
around in. Yeah.
and everyone's back together.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was last episode though, wasn't it? I
That's the
mean,
first time they've been in the same scene
I
together.
guess so, but we all saw that coming, so I don't
Yeah,
know that it was.
yeah,
And when when Perrin and Egwene show up to the White Tower, they're not given a big entrance. Like that
Yeah, they're
scene
just
is
in a
just
room.
them. They're just like they've it's as if they've been there for a long time, and Perrin's already being healed by the healers, and Egwene is is just hanging in the room. So it's not like they didn't get a big dramatic entrance or anything. It's just kind of presented matter of factly, like here they are, they're at the White Tower. So that was kind of disappointing. They could have cut some of that time out of that last scene with that rod, her making that oath on that rod for 5 solid minutes, and given Perrin and Egwene an actual entrance into the White Tower. I
Yeah,
wouldn't have complained about that.
I was a little. I think I fell victim to the overhyping too. So I think episode 4 is still the strongest one.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know which one is my favorite one, but it's not this one.
Yeah, I just like 4 because we had the whole battle with Logain and Nynaeve saved everyone.
Yeah, that's definitely the most actiony episode, and yeah, it's probably the best. It's probably is the best one. Not
I
to
mean,
say I
it's
don't
still a good
all.
episode.
Yeah, I don't always like the episodes that are more the most actiony. Like I don't need action scenes, but I do need like the plot to move forward in a meaningful way. And
Yeah.
I didn't really feel like that was what happened here
Well, even
in this
last
particular episode.
episode, so like last episode, the plot didn't really move forward, but we got that cool storyline with the warder, right?
Yeah,
Well, not necessarily cool, but impactful.
yeah, yeah,
And then this episode, like we get the impactful scene with Moraine being exiled, but we knew that was her plan already. So you're not really, you're just seeing her plan come together.
it would have been better. It would have been better if the script. It would have been better if the writers would have. So the scene where Swan and Moraine are together in
Yeah,
her quarters or her bedroom or whatever. And then they have Moraine say, "You need to exile me because of X, Y,
yeah,
and Z." If they would have cut that part out and just at the end had Swan exile her like in that ceremony, that would have been way more impactful, because then that would have made the
yeah,
audience think like, why, like if they're lovers and companions and they're working together, why is she exiling her? And then
yeah,
we could have put it together on our own to be like, oh, that's brilliant, she's exiling her just to get her out of the White Castle so she can continue on with her quest or whatever,
yeah,
rather than it's having the prior scene where they have Moraine suggesting it to Swan takes all of the impact out of
yeah.
it when it actually does happen.
And I think maybe another reason why people were saying, maybe not the critics, but like the author was saying it's such a good episode was because, like we said, there's a lot of things that are planted for the future. So maybe
Yeah,
in season 7 or whatever, you go back and watch this and you're like, oh, wow, they planted the seeds for this that happens later. But we don't know that now.
yeah,
So we don't have that perspective. To us, it's just like, okay, they did a
yeah,
lot of talking.
yeah. And that's, I mean, that's the way you have to think about it, right? Like we don't have the benefit of
Yeah,
knowing what's coming up down the line, so we can only judge it on its merit as it stands right now. We can't just make a bunch of assumptions about what's coming down the
yeah.
road.
But we have 3 more episodes, right? Um, 7. Uh, wait, we have, yeah, 3 more, right?
This was episode
6,
6.
6, 7. Oh, so there's 8. So we have 2 more.
Yeah, it
And
ends on the 24th.
yeah, so there's 2 more. So I think that things are going to have to pick up if they want a big climax in the ending.
I think they're. I mean, I have to assume they're working towards that because they're all going to be in the eye of the world, and I think
Yeah,
it would be a massive mistake if they arrive at the eye of the world and then nothing happens. They
yeah. So
spend
I think
another
that,
episode talking about
yeah,
things that the audience already knows, or furthering their plot, or like they're furthering the plot through dialogue rather than action.
yeah, but yeah, I think that the ending is going to have to be a lot of action to make up for these smaller episodes.
Yeah. I would assume that they are going to be.
Yeah,
And
so
I think it would probably be
see.
a mistake not to. So, yeah. All right. Anything else that you want to mention? We're just about an hour and 5 minutes here.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot. So,
Yeah. All right. So why don't we just end it there?
all right.
That was episode 6 of Pattern of the Ages. Please feel free to send us feedback at patternoftheages@gmail.com. That's patternoftheages@gmail.com. Until next time, thank you for listening.
See ya.